The typical daily routine was really terribly monotonous. The three of us were billets, and in effect we were really like cleaners. I also had a job in the morning getting the breakfast, this porridge which we called burgoo, and also bread, and also a big vat of tea, which tasted more like bromide than tea. I would get together with one or two other prisoners, and there was this old wooden, part metal, I remember it as wooden. I even think the wheels were wooden. An old trolley that weighed a ton, was very hard to manoeuvre, and I and the other two, or however many there were, would push this trolley out of A Division. This is very early in the morning, like 7 a.m. or whatever. Push it from A Division past C Division, which was a disgusting place. They weren't even sewered in C Division. They had this big vat where the men would empty their shit buckets each morning and then line up for breakfast afterwards. But past C Division to the kitchen. And in the kitchen, we'd line up outside with this big wooden trolley, and then we'd load up with all the burgoo in a big vat, a vat of tea, a vat of coffee, I think. Maybe there was just tea, and a whole lot of bread. Then push it back to A Division, where the man in charge of the mess hall would set it up to serve breakfast. And because we were in jail during winter, it was terribly cold early in the morning. But I must say there was a point of the jail's topography where you could actually see over the wall. And while we would be wheeling this cart, some mornings as the sun was rising, I'd get a glance or a lovely view over the wall, and you'd get the full impact of the sunrise. And some mornings it was the most spectacular red, crimson, purple sunrise. And of course you'd be breathing the steam, because the air you were breathing out was warmer than the air surrounding you. And we must have looked quite a sight with this old cart that wouldn't surprise me if it had been 100 years old, in our uniforms with all this grey walls all around us and grey prison jacket and trousers. So that's how the day began, really. Before doing that, of course, a bell would ring. I think it was a brass bell that was rang manually. You'd get up, you'd make your bed, you had to fold the blankets and sheets in such a way that they resembled a perfectly square block of wood. You'd place them at the end of your bed. When they did cell inspection, if the blankets and sheets didn't resemble a square, then you could receive a ticket. And if you got 3 tickets, you could lose remissions or be sent to H Division. Then another bell would ring and you would line up for muster, which is like roll call, where the chief of the division and some of the lesser warders walk around. They call out your name and you have to answer yes or yes sir. Generally speaking, you had to always call them sir. It was very offensive not to call the screws sir. Then after that you'd go to your different jobs, if you had jobs at that time of the morning. And because I used to get the breakfast, then I would go to that job. Then of course we would all eat breakfast, eat our burgoo, have a cup of tea or whatever, then go to our normal daily work routine. And that was varied around the jail. Some men worked on making car number plates, which was like a factory or an industry within the prison. Another prison industry was actually making mats. In schools in Victoria, they always used to have these big, thick doormats with ER on them for Elizabeth Regina. They were made, stitched together at Pentridge. But for Fergus and Brian and myself, or maybe it was just Fergus and me, anyway, I personally was a billet or a cleaner within A Division. My work routine was that we'd sweep the floors, then we'd mop them, then we'd scrub them. And in the afternoon, we would have to repeat much of that because all the 160 men had come in for their lunch, so you'd repeat the operation all over again. but you would also have to use a scrubbing brush and scrub the dirt out of the grooves being part of a design on each step. And there were many, many steps leading up to the tiers in A Division. And to me that was so senseless. On one occasion a warder came up to me and said, do it again, you're not doing it thoroughly enough, because you'd have to use the scrubbing brush. Like there might be 8 or 10 grooves on each step, and I don't know how many steps. They were metal steps, and they were painted red, as I remember. And this screw came up to me and said, you're not doing it thoroughly enough. You've got to get it so that the paint in between each groove is shining. And that meant scrubbing it, then drying it, then sort of trying to polish it up a bit. And knowing that at 4 o'clock 160 men would be coming back, going up those stairs to the mess hall to eat their dinner, and then you'd have to repeat the process all over again the next day, and on and on. We got paid 35 cents a day